The rain poured relentlessly over the small town of Everbrook, turning the cobbled streets into glistening rivers. The evening sky was painted in hues of gray, the cold wind whistling through the narrow alleys. In the middle of it all, a shivering golden retriever sat on the steps of an old bookstore, his amber eyes filled with longing. He wasn't just any stray. He had a name, Buddy. Buddy hadn't always been alone. Once, he had a home, a warm bed by the fireplace, and a human he adored more than anything in the world. That human was Ethan Carter, a young man with a kind heart and a love for books. From the moment they met, their bond had been unbreakable. Ethan had found Buddy as a puppy, abandoned near the town's bridge, on a stormy night much like this one. The moment their eyes met, something clicked. Ethan had wrapped the trembling puppy in his coat and whispered, "You're safe now, Buddy." From that day forward, they were inseparable. Ethan worked at the small bookstore owned by his grandfather, and every morning, Buddy would trot beside him, tail wagging, ready for another day of companionship. While Ethan arranged books and helped customers, Buddy would curl up near the counter, greeting visitors with his gentle eyes. Children adored him. Elderly customers would scratch behind his ears. And even those who weren't particularly fond of dogs couldn't help but smile at his presence. He wasn't just Ethan's pet. He was part of the bookstore's heart. But fate had a cruel way of testing bonds. One fateful autumn afternoon, Ethan received a letter, an opportunity that could change his life. A prestigious publishing company in another city had offered him a job. It was everything he had ever dreamed of, a chance to write and be part of the literary world. But it meant leaving Everbrook. It meant leaving Buddy. Ethan wrestled with the decision for days. He knew he couldn't take Buddy with him. The city apartment he would move into didn't allow pets. His heart ached at the thought of parting with his best friend. He considered finding Buddy a new home, but every time he looked into those trusting eyes, he couldn't bring himself to do it. On the morning of his departure, Ethan knelt beside Buddy, stroking his golden fur. His voice trembled as he whispered, "I'll be back, boy. I promise." Buddy wagged his tail, not understanding the weight of those words. Ethan hugged him one last time before stepping into the car. As the vehicle drove away, Buddy ran after it till his legs could carry him no more. When the car disappeared beyond the horizon, Buddy returned to the bookstore, curling up on the doorstep, waiting. And he waited. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. No matter how many times people tried to take him in, Buddy refused to leave. He would sit by the bookstore every morning and lay beneath the dim streetlights at night. Rain, snow, or sunshine. He waited because he had faith in one thing: Ethan would return. Autumn turned to winter, and the first snowfall blanketed Everbrook in a soft, white hush. The town's familiar streets became quieter, save for the crunching of footsteps and the occasional laughter of children playing in the snow. Through it all, Buddy waited. Each morning, he would wake up near the bookstore's entrance, his golden fur dusted with frost. The kind-hearted bookstore owner, Mr. Carter, Ethan's grandfather, would bring him inside, rubbing his cold paws gently. "You stubborn boy," Mr. Carter murmured, setting down a bowl of warm soup with bits of meat. "Ethan's not coming back anytime soon. You should find a new home." But Buddy would only wag his tail softly, finish his meal, and return to his spot by the door. The townspeople had grown used to the sight. Some admired Buddy's loyalty, others pitied him. Many tried to adopt him, offering warm beds and treats. But Buddy refused to leave the bookstore. One bitterly cold evening, Lena, a young woman who often visited the store, crouched beside him. "Buddy, you're breaking all our hearts, you know," she said, gently running her fingers through his thick fur. "Ethan's been gone for months." Buddy leaned into her touch, but his eyes remained fixed on the road Ethan had left on. Ethan had promised to write. At first, Mr. Carter received a few letters, excited ones. Ethan wrote about his new job, the towering bookshelves in the publishing house, the city's constant motion. He said he missed Everbrook, missed the bookstore, missed Buddy. But as months passed, the letters stopped coming. No one knew why. Mr. Carter tried calling, but the line always went to voicemail. Ethan's emails became fewer, then non-existent. The townspeople speculated. Had he forgotten Everbrook? Had he found a new life that didn't include them? Buddy didn't believe that. He continued his daily routine, waking at sunrise, watching the road, dozing off in the bookstore, and waiting until nightfall. Winter melted into spring. Flowers bloomed along the cobbled streets. Children played outside again, and the town slowly woke from its slumber. One day, a stranger arrived. A young man in a crisp black coat entered the bookstore, brushing off the springtime pollen. He approached the counter where Mr. Carter sat, flipping through an old novel. "Excuse me, sir. I'm looking for Ethan Carter's family." Mr. Carter's eyes lifted, wary. "Who's asking?" "My name is Daniel Grant. I worked with Ethan at the publishing house." Buddy, who had been curled up near the counter, lifted his head. His ears perked up at Ethan's name. Lena, who had been browsing bookshelves nearby, stepped closer. "You know Ethan?" she asked. "Where is he?" "He hasn't written in months." Daniel hesitated. His gaze flickered to Buddy, then back to Mr. Carter. "There's something you should know." A heavy silence settled in the bookstore. Buddy's tail thumped once against the wooden floor, almost as if he sensed something coming. Daniel exhaled. "Ethan, he's been in an accident." The words sent a chill through the room. Mr. Carter's fingers tightened around the book in his hands. "An accident?" "He was in a bad car crash 6 months ago," Daniel said carefully. "He survived, but he lost a lot of his memory. He doesn't remember much about his past life. Not Everbrook, not this bookstore." He glanced down at Buddy. Not even his dog. A stunned silence followed. Buddy had sat up now, his ears fully alert, golden eyes searching the stranger's face. Lena pressed a hand to her mouth. Mr. Carter turned pale, his knuckles white as he gripped the counter. Daniel continued, softer now. "I thought you should know. Ethan's been recovering, but it's been slow. He doesn't talk much about his past. It's like he's lost." Buddy let out a small whimpering sound, nudging Mr. Carter's knee. "He doesn't remember, Buddy," Lena whispered, her eyes glistening. Daniel shook his head. "I'm afraid not." Buddy stood, padding over to the bookstore's entrance. He sat down, staring at the road, just as he had done every day. For the first time in months, his tail stopped wagging. The rain had returned to Everbrook, light but steady, drumming against the windows of the bookstore. Mr. Carter sat in his worn leather chair, staring at the letter Daniel had left behind, the address of the rehabilitation center where Ethan was recovering. His fingers trembled as he traced the ink, his heart torn between hope and uncertainty. Lena sat across from him, silent, her eyes drifting toward Buddy, who hadn't moved from his spot by the door. The golden retriever sat with an almost eerie stillness, his gaze locked onto the road as if willing Ethan to appear. He doesn't remember, Lena murmured, but maybe he could. Mr. Carter looked at her, his eyes heavy with years of wisdom. Even if he doesn't, Buddy does. The decision was made. 2 days later, Mr. Carter and Lena packed their bags, bringing only the essentials. But the most important passenger sat in the back seat, ears perked, tail wagging slightly as the car rumbled to life. Buddy had never been in a car for this long before, yet he didn't whimper or shift nervously. He sat tall, eyes fixed ahead, as if he knew exactly where they were going. The journey was long. The city was loud, its towering buildings a stark contrast to Everbrook's quiet charm. But Buddy didn't care about the sights or the noise. His heart beat with an unshaken certainty. He was going to see Ethan. When they arrived at the rehabilitation center, Lena hesitated. What if he doesn't recognize us? Mr. Carter sighed. Then we remind him. Inside, the receptionist directed them to a small courtyard where patients were encouraged to get fresh air. And there, sitting on a bench beneath an overcast sky, was Ethan. His hair was slightly longer, and there were faint scars along his temple. He looked thinner, a little more tired, but he was there, alive. He had a book open on his lap, though his eyes weren't reading. He seemed lost in thought, gazing blankly at the pages. Buddy took one step forward, then another, and then he ran. His paws hit the pavement with urgency, his tail a blur of gold as he bounded toward the man he had been waiting for. His bark, full of joy and desperation, shattered the silence of the courtyard. Ethan looked up. For a moment, there was only confusion, then shock, and then something deep in his chest stirred, something long buried beneath months of fog. Buddy skidded to a stop just inches away, panting heavily, his eyes brimming with emotion. He nudged Ethan's knee with his nose, whining softly, as if asking, "Do you remember me?" Ethan's breath caught. His fingers trembled as he slowly reached out, hesitating, as if afraid the moment might shatter. His hand touched warm fur. A memory flickered. Laughter by the fireplace, playful chases through the bookstore, the sound of paws on wooden floors. Buddy, the name slipped from his lips before he could stop it. The golden retriever let out a joyful bark, licking Ethan's hands, nudging his face, his entire body trembling with relief. Ethan let out a shaky breath, his vision blurring. Something inside him clicked, like the missing piece of a puzzle finally falling into place. Tears slipped down his cheeks as he wrapped his arms around Buddy, holding onto him like an anchor in a storm. "I remember you," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I remember." Lena turned away, wiping her own tears. Mr. Carter simply smiled, his heart lighter than it had been in months. The road back home would be long, but Ethan was no longer lost, and Buddy would never have to wait again.